Welcome back to today's episode of Legacy Lessons with Jack and Chan, where our goal is to provide you education, information, and inspiration over a little bit of conversation. So let's go.
When all the heads in the house turn towards the door, and all the men's jaws drop to the floor, it's nothing to me, it's just how I roll. People on the dance floor starting to jump, and all their little hearts going thump, thump, thump. Nothing special to me, that's just how I roll.
We are back with another episode. Dr. Chan, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
All right, so Dr. Chan, one of the things that is critically important, especially as I think about these last 30 plus years that I've been in this business, is my mental health. And I know that, as we think about mental health, physical health, those are things that are just top of mind, really, as especially post-COVID, right? And so we're going to have a lot of great conversation today. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what do you typically do for mental health? Like, what is your morning routine? How do you get started every single day as like a global chief economist? Like, what's a day in the life? But more specifically, how you keep your mind right?
Well, I think the best way, Jack, to keep your mind right is to basically take care of your mind and the rest of your body. If your body is not functioning properly, then your mind is not going to be functioning properly. So how do I do that? Every morning, 7 days a week, I get up and there's at least 30 to 45 minutes of workout, whether it be lifting weights, whether it be on elliptical, whether it be a long walk. You got to do something every day because that will strengthen your mental health. And guess what? That means that you'll be able to focus on all the important things the rest of the day. And that's what I do.
All right, so you just shared a little bit about your morning routine and the importance of taking care of yourself and that you spend 7 days a week. That's pretty inspiring. I try to do 3, I really do, but 7 days a week, that is pretty. Now, has it always been like that? Have you always been that guy that gets up and works out 7 days a week? I mean, or is this something that's been more like in recent years? Like, talk to me.
I've been doing this for the last 40 years. And before that, I was probably a 3 or 4 day type of person. But I think that as I've matured and as I've really encountered more challenges, this is the secret sauce that keeps me going. And by the way, I think for everybody, it's going to be different. For some people, 3 days a week will do it. For me, I need more than that. Yeah. So everybody is different. But the important thing to do is to understand that if you take care of yourself, guess what? You can take care of others. You can take care of your family. If you don't take care of yourself, then you're not going to be good to the rest of your family. And by the way, it will also shorten your lifespan, which means you accumulate a lot less benefits for the rest of your family. So you want to maximize, or some people might say optimize, the ability to help others.
That's right. You just reminded me as you were talking, I was thinking about, again, that room that we were in back in Las Vegas of, majority women, actually majority Black women. And one of the things that they talk about a lot, myself being included, is just our mental health, especially lately. It's been a bit under attack.
Yes.
And I share that vulnerability because I really do think it's important that we unpack this and not be the strong women that we always have been sort of our heritage has required us to be. And I just want to talk about that because I know 90% of my clients are Black women, and a lot of them, are really in a place right now where, we're struggling. And so that's why I asked you about your morning routine, because I do believe that having a strong, start to your day to really set that mental focus is, half the battle. And then I think it's really about understanding that the other half of the battle is that you don't have to, you can do your very best. And it's almost like many of us are forced, or not, I don't want to use the word forced, but many of us are in a situation where it's we're like a sandwich. We're taking care of our elders, we're taking care of kids, and in some cases we're doing it as single moms, and we're still having to change the world. And so I find this topic now just coming up more and more at the kitchen table during the holidays. And for somebody to truly feel wealthy, I feel like they need to take control of their mental health. And so are you hearing conversations? I mean, like when you're out there with your family, when you're out there in the community, when you're, reading, the various journals, are you finding that, now post-COVID, we're seeing an uptick in this? And how is that impacting people's ability to want to like actually invest, right? Is it really hurting them? Or are they kind of, what's the word I want to think about? Is it hurting them? Meaning, is their mental health is it causing them to not want to do the things that they need to do for their wealth? Meaning, invest, go get insurance, do the things that we know are critically important, but we push it off because the mental health is kicked in.
JaQ, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because as I speak to people around the country, but more importantly, my own family, I will tell you that post-COVID, people have become a lot more nervous about the future.
Yeah.
That, by the way, is the reason why you have seen a surge in the number of consumers that are spending money on experiences. Some people might say overspending on experiences and not thinking about the future. And I recently did a presentation and I did some research on this. And yes, we are seeing services, experiences, those type of expenditures have surged. And people are saying, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And the real reason, as I talk to a lot of different people, is because we now feel more vulnerable. We now feel like we can sort of disappear one day to the next. We can die. We can have a terrible epidemic, a terrible virus that will just wipe us off the planet. And so it's really allowed the pendulum to swing almost in the other direction, where we think less about the future and more about the present.
So this was it FOMO? The fear of
Yes,
missing
the
out?
fear of missing out is something that's really pretty serious. And so what I tell people is absolutely you have to think about the present. It's all about the quality of life. But that doesn't mean that you completely ignore the future, because guess what? If we're here in the future, we've got to take care of our families, and that's done through investments, that's done through savings, and you also have to take care of yourself. And that means your health, your mental health, and also your financial health. So the pendulum has swung, in some sense, too much in that direction. But again, it's part of the reason for that is we went through a really terrible experience. JaQ, this is the first time that any of us have experienced something like this since 1917 and 1918, when we had the Spanish virus.
That's right.
And of course, the Spanish virus, we call it that, but it actually originated in the United States. But the reason why we call it that, because we were in a war and we were worried that if we said it was in the United States, then it would make us vulnerable. Again, that word vulnerable, nobody ever wants to be vulnerable.
That's right.
So we thought Spain was neutral in the war, so let's just say it and call it the Spanish virus.
Yeah.
And we do that all the time. So rather than just focusing on being vulnerable, how about focusing on making ourselves stronger, financially stronger, mentally stronger? And by the way, when we mention some people work out 3 days a week, 2 days a week, 7 days a week, for everyone, it's a little different. If it means taking an afternoon or taking a period to have lunch with friends, people that you feel comfortable with, that will make you feel a lot stronger. Do those things. It's not always working out for everybody. It may be just spending time with family, spending time with deep friends, hugging somebody.
Yeah.
We were all nervous about hugging people
were
because
so
of the
nervous.
virus.
That's right.
But if we're healthy, we have to go back to hugging people.
That's right.
We have to go back to forming those strong bonds.
That's right.
That's what we need.
That's right.
So that we can have a more balanced life. Because you don't want to have an unbalanced life when it comes to thinking financially for the future, thinking about our mental health. We have to have a balanced life. And that's the secret
That
to
is.
being successful.
That really is. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because, again, as we think about this topic of mental health and, just the things that you mentioned, yeah, there was a major uptick in travel, right? I know I see so many people going to Bali and, some of these, very interesting destinations that were on the infamous bucket list. And now that bucket list is starting to come to, I guess, to manifestation a lot sooner. So, I want to unpack that a little bit more, right? As far as, from an economic perspective, what has the pandemic done specifically around this mental health piece and how people are they getting into more hobbies? Are we seeing an uptick in, travel, entertainment, different things like that? Or people like me when I'm not traveling, which I travel now more than I've ever in my life, I'm at home. I'm not going to the restaurants. And so like I think about downtown Chicago right now, my other home outside of Detroit, there's so many of my staple restaurants that are closing right
Yes.
now. And so like some of the things I used to like to do for fun pre-pandemic, go out with friends, like you say, maybe go grab a martini. I don't really like to do that as much anymore. I'd rather be home. And so like talk about that. What's been going on? In one hand, things have been good, but in other hands, we're watching some of this commercial real estate and some of these retailers struggle.
We really are. And it makes me a little worried because when I look at what's happening with commercial real estate, we just saw a statistic this week which estimates that we may have up to $1 trillion worth of commercial real estate losses. That's a huge share of the market. And so if we have that guess what? That means less investment in commercial real estate. It also means that regional banks, which have a bigger exposure to commercial real estate, are going to be hurt. That means a lot of loans are not going to take place. Loan standards are going to be higher. So that means small and medium-sized businesses will be impacted. And we know that small and medium-sized businesses create close to 80% of all the new jobs in this country. Wow. So we got to have that balance. And another statistic, which really made me nervous, is that when you look at 401k balances, at different for different age groups, they're going lower and lower and lower. Again, we're focusing so much on thinking that this may be our last year or our last couple of years on this planet that we want to live for now. Nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't mean you ignore the future.
Wow.
Because for most of us, the next decade will be there, and we still have to take care of our family in the next decade. We have to take care of ourselves in the next decade and still have fun.
That's what I'm talking about. So, like, this is to your point. If we're spending everything today for this fear, or to, give ourselves an excuse sometimes to say, I need to go spend $5,000 on this fancy vacation for my mental health. But then I look up and now I don't have anything saved for my retirement. Right. Or I've dipped into that 401k that you've talked about for fear of missing out today. Now I'm 82 and I've exhausted my retirement. And so there is this balance of, and one of the things that we really want to unpack on Legacy Lessons is the power of generational wealth. And that, yes, we can have fun today. No one wants to, put you in a box, right?
Right.
But if we're not thinking for tomorrow, then, what do you've been around, you said, you've been doing this for 40 years, Dr. Chan.
Right.
What is the next 40 years if we're not thinking about those kind of things, right? If our audience is only thinking about, let me take care of today, and quite often sometimes I'm going to, share this, is that, sometimes the more successful we are, you have the more people wanting to, borrow money, or you tend to spend more money, and, not enough money is being positioned properly for the next decade or two or three, or frankly, planning for it to be not your money, but maybe your children's children. That's a big thing that I'm all about, is, that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So, I really want to unpack that a little bit.
Well, I think that you really hit the nail on the head, JaQ, because whether you're a man or you're a woman, you have to take care of future generations. And I think this is the legacy that all of us wants to deliver to the next generation, that we somehow made their lives a little bit easier. And I think that we are an immigrant country, and the early immigrants, that was the message. We suffer now, and the next generation will do a lot better. And again, the pendulum always swings, because maybe back then, those immigrants were suffering too much and sort of helping the future generation too much. But that doesn't mean that we allow the pendulum to move completely in the opposite direction. So again, that balance. Let's enjoy life now, but at the same time, we should not ignore the future. Let's focus on what's going to happen in the next 5, 10, 20 years. Because I have a secret for you, JaQ. Most of us out there working in the labor market will be around in the next 20 years. Even if we think we won't, we will be.
I think so.
And so we better be prepared for it.
That's right. And so I know we're going to probably spend some time on that too in future episodes, speaking of the next 10, 20 years and being around and, definitely talking about how AI may be impacting some of those future opportunities, one, to earn a living if we are around, given that we will be around, because that's the secret you said, that we will probably be around. And if so, what is it going to look like? So I'm sure we'll talk about that. But, going back to the subject of mental health, and I want to, sort of get us to an inspirational moment here, because as I think about one of the things that you shared, that again, just that, how that's impacting, the environment specifically. And I'm tying mental health, believe it or not, and commercial real estate. My brain, the reason why I'm tying that together is I'm wondering if, remember, everyone was sent home, right? During the pandemic. Now there's many businesses, I live in Detroit. So Mary Barra, CEO of GM, right? It's like she tried to bring everyone back, I think, 5 days a week. It wasn't really quite going so well. I actually had an office in GM headquarters, so it was very, very much a ghost town for many, many people. But now you're forcing people now back in the office 5 days a week. One, because you want to hopefully get people spending money again at the businesses, and two, you want to. But it's impacting people's mental health. It's almost like we got people used to working from home, not having to spend money on travel to the office, gas, parking. In some cases, downtown Chicago could be $40-50 a day, to now saying you got to come back. So I gave you a lot of information, but I'm like, what's your thoughts?
The thought is that anytime you have a major change in your environment, it's going to have an impact on mental health. It always shocks me when people say, oh, we have this surge in mental health issues. And then I say that because I see it in my own family. And they're so shocked that we're seeing this big change. And I said, don't be shocked. We had a major change where for almost 2 years, people were locked up in their apartments. And that caused an increase in mental health. And as we adjusted to that, now we're shocking these individuals again and telling them they have to go back just when they learn to survive inside the home. Right. So there's going to be that shock. So again, what is the secret? The secret is to do it gradually. Also to make people want to do it. Now, some companies are being very innovative. And what they're doing is, for those individuals that move back to work gradually, they're incentivizing them. They're giving them bigger bonuses. They're maybe making it easier for them to continue to get promoted. So again, you got to have somehow not only just the stick, but you got to have the carrot. Right. Same thing. When you invest, the long-term average rate of return in the stock market is somewhere close to 7 to 8%. So if we sacrifice a little bit, guess what? With the power of compounding, which Albert Einstein told us, it's a genius type of concept that makes us all be able to live a better life. You got to have some rewards. And companies are learning that, and they're giving those rewards. But, JaQ, you got to realize this change has to be gradual. And what some companies are doing is that they're making it too abrupt, and not all of them are giving that carrot and giving the incentives. But if we do it gradually, and what do I mean by gradually? Some companies are saying, okay, you have to go back to your office, but it's not 5 days a week, it's 3 days a week. And maybe next year, maybe 4 days a week. But anytime there's a major shift, nobody on this planet should be shocked. It's going to cause major problems with mental health. And by the way, if we don't deal with this issue, it's not only going to impact our wealth in the future, but it's going to impact society as a whole, and not in a positive way. So it is a major issue. I'm glad you brought it up.
Absolutely.
Because it really impacts all of us. And all of us have to look for different things that will ameliorate the negative impact of these mental health effects that we're experiencing because of this big shock.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for that. It is a big shock, and now kind of 4 years sort of removed from the initial shock of it, and still, dealing with the byproduct of that has been very interesting. And so thank you for sharing that. And so I'm going to shift gears real quick. We're going to have a little bit of fun moment. Let's go there. So we're here live in Las Vegas. And so, what is your favorite restaurant when you come to Vegas? Like, Vegas is known to have good food. I mean, I know you're in New York, so there's great food in New York. But there's delicious, amazing food here in Las Vegas. So do you have like a favorite spot you like to go to?
Well, there's a Vietnamese restaurant that sells fried chicken wings. Again, sort of an Asian style type of a restaurant, which I think is very, very exciting. And the last thing you think about when you come to Vegas is poke. And you think of it in Hawaii, or you think of it in an Asian setting, but the poke here is amazing. So there is a lot of different things out there. And by the way, Vegas has some really good things. And that is that all the major restaurants that you find in New York and Chicago, they have satellite locations here.
They sure do.
So if you
can
like
get Giordano's Pizza right at the Paris Hotel.
You get a lot of different things here, whether it be a French restaurant, whether it be a good Italian restaurant. You got those restaurants here represented right on the strip and in the hotels. So I think that's what I love about Vegas. It's got that cosmopolitan flair that you don't always get in all the cities around the United States.
That's real. It is truly dynamic. I've been coming out to Vegas since I was a little girl. When the Dunes, I don't know if you remember the Dunes.
I do.
And so we used to stay at the Dunes, and then I remember just being my eyes even back then. I mean, that's before all that Vegas has done over the last 30 plus years, but it is truly a fun city. Now, I always have to share that, we're here in Vegas. Don't gamble with your money, my friends. But, when I think about some of my favorite restaurants, you mentioned the Cosmopolitan, and actually that hotel. My favorite restaurant is Hattie B's in the Cosmopolitan, some of the best chicken on the planet. So you mentioned fried chicken, and that is actually one of my favorite things. Hattie B's fried chicken. Oh my God. I will probably go see Hattie about 2 or 3 times before I leave here today. So anyway, so let's wrap up with some information. And, we've been talking about mental health, and we've been talking about just different resources, different impacts it's had on the economy, definitely since COVID. But as we think about our audience here, whoever we're talking to, what are your thoughts as far as, mental health as it relates to some of our young people? Because lately what I have been hearing, is what's been breaking my heart, is that our young people have been struggling more now than ever before. And it's actually impacting sort of my age group and beyond, because we're trying to figure out, how do we handle our young people that might be struggling with something that they've never had to deal with in their life?
Well, JaQ, I think it's important that you sit down, you think about the things that are impacting you in a negative fashion. I say that from the heart because I have 3 daughters, and they all have experienced some form of mental illness in their lives. And again, this big shock. And one of the things I tell them, just like I tell others, is find the things that will make that mental health struggle that you're experiencing just a little bit better. And again, gradually move in that direction. Don't take any drastic steps. Don't spend your entire future or 401k trying to make it go away, because that's going to be only a short-term solution. But think about long-term things. And so focusing on that and spending a lot of time on that is important. And I'll tell you why. Because as you travel around the country, forget about outside the United States, and you see the massive amount of homelessness that we have in this country, and you ask yourself, why is this happening? The early stages of that homelessness is mental health.
That's right. That's right.
And so if you let it get to that point, then it's much harder to address.
Yeah.
So you want to deal with it a lot earlier. And I say this because I've had people in my own family that have struggled with mental health and have taken severe medication to deal with mental health. And I tell them the same thing. Please look for ways, seek help, and look for ways to make it better. Because if you let it sort of linger, it's like a problem. And problems don't age well. You need to address them early on.
That's right. That's right. And I bring this up because, again, a big part of Legacy Lessons is about helping families navigate not only their issues of wealth, but oftentimes I find myself in conversations about the issues of mental health with some of our younger family members, and, bringing us in, to have conversations to help educate them not only in financial literacy, but like you mentioned in earlier episodes, coming in with that heart, right? That it's more than just about money. Because if the mental health is not there, especially with our young people, then those problems don't age well. And so as we wrap up this episode, I want to encourage my audience, because one of the things that I'm very passionate about, and you know this about me,
I sure do,
is my next generation. I spend a lot of time investing in our next generation. I've been doing that for the past 30 years. And I believe that if we can help get to our kids and get to them early and teach them things about wealth and about mental health, and let them know that we care, like truly care about them. And we're doing conversations like this because we want them to know that, we are a resource. And so with that being said, if you are a young person or an old person, it doesn't matter, and you're struggling with your mental health, please, by all means, seek the help that you need. If there's issues of suicide, remember 988. I always remind people that, unfortunately, I've lost 2 people in the last year to suicide, and I never want to see that happen again. So this episode was dedicated to mental health, especially in our industry. It's run rampant for many, many years in the wealth industry. And so I just want to encourage you, go out there, seek that, because we want you here for a long time. We want to be able to help you take that legacy and let it live on. So with that, thank you, Dr. Chan, for this great conversation. Is there anything else you want to leave our audience with as it relates to this topic of mental health?
The message I want to leave all of you with is always take care of yourself first, and then take care of the people that you love most second. And when you take care of yourself and the people that you love most, you make progress, because they in turn will do the same thing. And before you know it, we're going to be living in a better place.
Well, there you have it. All right. Thank you for joining us on today's episode with Legacy Lessons with JaQ and Chan.